to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Come on, man.
Bruh.
I'm trying to catch D-Train.
What? A train?
D-Train.
So a train out here?
Dude, I always got to explain this stuff to you. D-Train. D-Train was an artist back in the day, and we're going to get into that tonight for your sake. The whole reason I like this guy, because, man, I'll tell you a quick story. I had my band and stuff like that, and we lost guitar player, bass guitar player at the last minute. And so we were preparing for a show, so I had to get together some stuff, some electronics, a drum machine, and we had a guy playing the bass, synth on the bass, and I was playing the keyboards, and we were all good vocalists. So we had to pull that show off with just that. And one of the reasons that it worked is because I was thinking at the level that James D-Train was thinking in, and Hubert Eaves, because that's pretty much how they put that band together. And that's what we're gonna get into tonight. And also I wanna let you know that maybe you don't know, there's a dance called the D-Train Hustle now that people are doing. And also, did you know back like in '97 that D-Train was part of the Pokemon rap in the first Pokemon series? Hey, we're gonna get into his whole story, so you hang around there to the bottom. Busting up on the cloud, shout out loud. Brother, you just got my attention straight off the rip. Man, this song is called You're the One for Me. And for years, that has been what it's been. The one for me. Straight disco R and B-funk for the floor. The dance floor, that is. And that cat right there is Brother D-Train. And if you don't know him, nor ever heard this song, happy first birthday, brothers and sisters. Welcome to your first day on the planet. Because you were just born, or either so asleep that you think R&B stands for rice and beans. But I can't let you be ignorant though. My friend, this was, and still is, the jam that you just can't sit down on. Now get your butt up and jam to it. Nice, but they got a special new dance for this song now, called the D-Train Hustle. And I ain't joking either, because You're the One for Me may have fallen off the radar some over the years, but it's definitely now sparking big new interest again. Now, we're about to get into the D-Train story and that hit song, You're the One for Me. And it begins in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York, on January 21st, 1962, where James Nelson Williams was born into a world that would shape every note he would eventually sing. And before he ever became known as D-Train, before the clubs, the records, and the unmistakable voice that would one day fill dance floors across the whole world, he was simply a young boy growing up in a home where faith, discipline, and music were already deeply connected. Now, like many of the greatest voices in funk, soul, R&B music, his earliest foundation was not built inside a recording studio. It was built inside the church, or like the old folks used to say, church. Raised in the Church of God in Christ, James began singing at Washington Temple, where music was not treated as entertainment, but as something sacred.
Well, I started singing when I was like about 6 years old at Washington Temple Church of God in Christ over there on Bedford and Bergen Street in Brooklyn under Bishop Washington. We grew up in that big mega church.
And while most children his age were still learning how to speak confidently in front of a classroom, James was standing before hundreds of people in church, learning how to project his voice, how to command attention, and how to deliver every word with conviction. Those early moments would shape not only his voice, but his understanding of what singing was truly meant to be and do. Even decades later, when listeners hear D-Train sing, they are hearing more than talent. They are hearing church, discipline, and a man whose musical roots were planted in something much deeper than arrogant superstar ambition. But let me clear something up right quick here before we go further. It is documented that James was born to John and Laura Williams, the youngest of 13 children. But for some unknown reason, at 6 months of age, James became fostered by Raymond and Ella Smith, so they say these are the people who raised him. And therefore, the only mother he really ever knew was the lady nicknamed Mother Smith at the Washington Temple Church they attended. And his mother played one of the most important roles in those early years, encouraging him, supporting him, and helping him overcome the nervousness that naturally comes with standing in front of large crowds. Her belief in him became part of the confidence he carried into adulthood. As he grew older, James was inspired, like so many young performers of his generation, by the explosion of musical talent happening around him and in the world.
When I was a kid growing up, Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 came on the Ed Sullivan Show. And they were black kids who looked like me. And I was like, wow, I can do this. I kept walking around my father's house with a broomstick because I wanted to be like Jermaine. And my father would laugh at me. He said, do you really want to play the guitar? And I said, yes, I do. He went down Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, brought me a guitar, and they put me in guitar lesson.
Yeah, like for all of us, watching artists like the Jackson 5 electrify audiences helped him realize music was more than something heard inside church walls. It could move, excite, and transform lives totally. But they made him stay focused on the church singing for a minute. And he had already cut his first professional gospel record at age 15 with the Reverend Timothy Wright on the song Victory and the Praise, as you can see here. So now James had visions of being a gospel singer. But even with that growing dream, music was not the only thing that would get his attention and focus, because as a teenager, attending Erasmus Hall High School in Brooklyn, James got interested in sports and also developed into playing defensive tackle on the football field. He was actually good and also became known for the force of his hits. Man, teammates said being hit by James felt like getting hit by a train. Yep, you got it. And from that moment, a nickname was born that would follow him into music history. D-Train, after the well-known MTA Brooklyn subway line, because, according to those on the team, when he hits you, it's like being hit by a train. And note that two of Williams' schoolmates at Erasmus were actor Harold Perrineau of Lost and singer Will Downing. I know you heard of Will. So James spent some time with focusing heavily on sports. He had actually become the football team captain at one point. But none of that was ever his true calling. Therefore, by the time he was finishing high school, his focus had naturally shifted back toward music. As he entered adulthood, James continued developing both his musicianship and his understanding of who he wanted to become. What he could not yet know was that one relationship was about to change everything. That relationship came through producer and musician Hubert Eaves III, a gifted keyboardist and songwriter who understood that music itself was changing. The early 1980s were a fascinating moment in sound. Traditional soul and funk were evolving, and synthesizers were beginning to shape what the future would feel like. Hubert recognized something extraordinary in James's voice. It had power, depth, and emotion, but most importantly, it had character. Together, they began working to create something new, something that could honor soul while stepping boldly into the future. That defining moment came in the creation of a song that would forever change James Williams' life. Yeah, my music-loving friends, it was on like Al Capone. As the opening synthesizer begins, you can immediately hear that something different is happening in this joint. The sound feels futuristic, polished, and electronic, almost like stepping into tomorrow. But then James enters, and suddenly the entire record changes shape. His voice ain't simply joining the track. Nah, bruh, it's bogarting it. I mean, what started out as a clean, machine-driven groove suddenly becomes real human, emotional, and alive. That is what made this song special. Hubert Eaves built the framework, but D-Train gave it a funky soul. When you gather all the words and look at them, it sounds honorable, noble, and cute, but D-Train's not delivering a gentle love song here, partner. He's bringing the new funk, and with some force, conviction, and urgency to it. Do you hear me, girl? But now let's pull this thing into the train station garage for a minute. Because before we roll any further down the Brooklyn D-Train line, we gotta pop the hood and see what's really making this "You're the One for Me" funk locomotive move down the tracks. First thing holding the whole ride together is that drum machine, the Electro Harmonix DRM 16 digital rhythm matrix. And that was the drum machine Hubert Eaves used to lay down that funk foundation pattern with before any live drums ever touched it. That beatbox was clocking rhythm and time, steady and mechanical, like a train wheel locked on iron rails. After adding in those claps and effects, you had a nice pocket of mechanical rhythm. But that was just to have a foundation, because to make this track be authentically funky, they brought in the amazing Howard King on live drums. That cat sat right on top of that beatbox noise and made it breathe like a real man. That's when it stopped sounding like a machine and started hitting like a real funk master on the skins. Now, right on top of that, you get the funky bass foundation coming straight off the Prophet 5. Yeah, and this is where Hubert Eaves really changed the game. That Prophet 5 synthesizer wasn't just new on the scene, it was revolutionary for the time, letting Eaves build full bass movement instead of single note limitations that you had in the past. When they do this hit song live, you might see a live bass player or a dude in the background on synth bass, but either way, that bass line on You're the One for Me is mean, thick, controlled, locked in like it's welded to the track, like we now know it to be. Just iconic to the funk R&B genre. This is where the groove starts to stack. Yeah, man, you hear that second keyboard part, that rhythmic synth comping against the bass? That's the part that gives the record its bounce. That's where the groove starts talking to itself, call and response, machine talking to machine. Then you get that top line synth melody that everybody and their mama recognizes, the instrument voice of the record without saying a word. That's the hook floating above everything, the part that cuts through clubs and radios alike. That melody is what made people stop what they were doing and turn toward the sound. No guitars, no horns, just pure keyboard architecture built by Hubert Eaves III, layering rhythm on top of rhythm until it starts to feel like motion itself. What you got on the bridge, Hubert? Hubert added a few more synth horn parts and a grand piano to fill out the pocket he wanted, and even that solo he did. But here's where it all flips. Hubert laid all the funk down, but when James D. Train Williams walked in, he didn't treat it like a backing track. He treated it like a pastor in a pulpit, trying to make the congregation catch the spirit.
With the love I have inside of me, we can turn.
Yeah, in some versions he comes in with that crooning at the beginning, but don't let bro fool you.
With this new love I found, takes my feet up off the ground to find way.
Church lets out quickly, and the funk comes in like he's trying to make you break a leg dancing. And hit him with the bridge right quick so they know, bruh.
You just don't know how you make me feel. Your free love, girl, it's so unreal. I've got love desire.
Man, that voice became another layer of rhythm, not sitting on top, but moving inside the beat.
Love I have inside of me, we can turn this world around. We can live through all eternity, and we never touch the ground.
So what you're hearing is not just a song. You're hearing the studio work of Hubert Eaves.
Everything else on the record is just effects and James D. Train Williams.
All fused together and turning it into a living performance. This was the D-Train getting ready for full motion. All right, station stop over, watch the closing doors, ma'am. The D-Train story keeps rolling down the tracks. When You're the One for Me reached dance floors, especially in New York clubs where records were tested in real time, it became clear that something major was happening. People moved differently when this song came on. You're the One for Me climbed to the top of the Billboard dance chart in early 1982, announcing that D-Train was no passing trend. And what made the record so important was not just its commercial success, but what it represented. A new sound, one that blended electronic production with emotional soul in a way that would influence countless artists after him. The success continued with another major hit. Keep On, a song that carried both dance floor energy and a message of perseverance. It was encouragement set to rhythm. D-Train and Hubert Eaves had proven again that they could create records that made people move while also giving them something deeper to hold on to. Their albums Music and Something's on Your Mind continue to establish their presence. The single Something's on Your Mind became one of their most successful records on the R&B charts, peaking in the Billboard R&B Top 5. By this point, D-Train was not just respected, he was recognized as one of the defining voices of this new era in soul and dance music. And with all of that success came the realities of personal life. While the public heard his records and saw his growing recognition, privately he was balancing the responsibilities that come with fatherhood and the emotional demands of sustaining both family and career. As the 1980s continued, musical trends and industry pressures shifted, and the D-Train duo eventually transitioned, but the creative bond between James and Hubert Eaves III did not simply end. When James moved forward into a solo career and signed with Columbia Records, they remained together with Hubert Eaves, still right there behind the boards. They navigated this new era with the 1986 album Miracles of the Heart, and his voice remained as powerful as ever. But the musical landscape was changing, and the new jack swing began to rise. Yet James Williams refused to disappear. Instead, he lent his sound to high-profile commercial jingles, elite studio session work, and background vocals for industry stars like Michael Jackson, Elton John, and Luther Vandross. But as the years passed, James would also experience personal loss, including the passing of his beloved mother in 2006. But rather than retreat, he continued building his legacy, returning to music with renewed purpose. He also eventually displayed his musical expertise as a host on Sirius XM radio. And then in 2015, his legacy was officially recognized with a prestigious career honor from the National Rhythm and Blues Music Society. Then in 2022, he was further cemented in music history with his induction into the Legends of Vinyl Music Hall of Fame. Today, James D-Train Williams remains a respected and celebrated figure in music history. Going on 65 and still out there performing, his voice still carrying the same power that first stunned audiences more than 4 decades ago, and still cherished by those who remember exactly where they were. When they first heard this monster jam blow up a pair of speakers, James Williams was a young man from Williamsburg, Brooklyn, raised in church, strengthened by family, sharpened by discipline, and gifted with one of the most unforgettable and recognizable voices of his time.
Hey guys, man, I hope you appreciate this type of stuff on the Music Mindset channel. I'm glad you came in to check this out, and I hope you learned something. D-Train, one heck of an artist, still around doing his thing, and guess what? He's gonna keep on doing his thing until the Lord calls him home. I love that guy, and I love his music, and I hope you do too. And make sure you come back to the Music Mindset channel, because on this channel, this is the type of stuff we do. And I'm gonna check you guys out next time. Thanks.